an interest that followed me throughout my life that I wasn't ever really able to explore in depth like I wanted, because 9/11 happened. That's when I started to look into it, to see like, well, this can't be everything the media is saying. And surprise, surprise, it turned out it wasn't. So just over the years, it sort of came and went. I describe it as like a tide coming in and out of my life. Hey, I really want to look into this. And then it would kind of ebb away. And then, hey, I really need to look into this. And then it would ebb away. And so this final time, I was like, I'm really going to sit down, and I ordered a copy of the Quran. When I said my Shahada, and in speaking to the Imam, I felt that guilt and grief just sort of lift. I don't feel that anymore, because there was just a feeling in my heart of, this is the right thing for me to do. This is the path that I need to take for myself. I could feel, I guess you would call it, the presence of Allah in my heart and surrounding me. It was, for lack of a better term, it was a leap of faith. That's been another good spiritual experience that I've had with Islam, is just finding a peace within myself. Yes. And coming to terms with my little brother's death that I didn't have before.
All right, everyone. Let's welcome Heather. She is a very recent convert to Islam. And how are you doing today, Heather?
Doing very well, alhamdulillah. Just been going over some stuff with my partner, and been spending the day crocheting. So it's been a good day.
So tell us about where you're from, what it's like there. Because we have people all over the world who listen. So yeah,
I am from a very tiny town in Louisiana called Baker, and it's about 20 miles outside of Baton Rouge. I am, as far as I am aware, the only Muslim in the entire city of Baker.
Right.
So it definitely makes things interesting when going to the grocery store. So yeah, I grew up in Baton Rouge for most of my life, and when I moved in with my partner, I moved to Baker.
Wow, that's awesome. So okay, was it hard to convert? I mean, you're in the middle of
not
tiny town.
Not really, because it was more of a personal decision, and I had already been. I call myself a full-time hijabi, part-time niqabi. I had already been wearing hijab and dressing modestly before I even converted. So it wasn't really that hard physically, I guess would be the right term. Spiritually, I'm still, what's the word I'm looking for? Spiritually, I'm still finding my comfort level and learning. So that's not hard. It's just more of a, let's learn and figure out things and read the Quran and talk to fellow sisters and talk to the Imam. So it wasn't really that hard to convert, no.
Okay. So were there any easy parts to converting?
The easy parts were more of following what my heart was telling me, that I should really look into Islam more, and that it seemed to be the right path for me. So I'm a very emotional person. I listen to my emotions, which can sometimes be a detriment, but sometimes can be a good thing. So it was really easy when it came to saying my shahada and learning and reading and connecting with fellow sisters who I met at the masjid, and yeah, that was pretty easy.
Sure. What was the most enjoyable part?
The community. I love the community that my local masjid has. Everybody seems to be really tight knit, and we take care of each other. We have a reverts group on WhatsApp where if you're a revert and you have questions, you can ask anything you want, and nobody judges you, and everybody's very, very helpful. And it's really nice to have this sense of, I guess, family would be the right term.
Yeah, that makes sense. I feel the same way. Yeah, it's like family. Yeah, definitely. So then where do you go for Juma? Since you're in such a small town.
I have to go all the way to Baton Rouge. It's about a 30-minute drive, and we have a local masjid, and it's they have Juma there every Friday at 1:00, and so I try to attend every Friday if I can. Sometimes I can't because life.
Yeah, of course.
But if I can't attend that Friday, I try to set some time aside and read the Quran, or like if I have something specific that's been on my mind all week, I'll try and look up if there's a specific Quranic verse or a hadith about that particular whatever that's been on my mind that day.
Okay. So why did you become Muslim?
I've always had an interest in it. I was first introduced to it, I think it was in middle school. I think it was a history class or social studies class. And they were talking about like the different religions, and they they passed around a copy of the Quran, and I remember I held on to it, and I read the very first chapter, and I thought, well, that's really nice. I like that. And then it was just sort of an interest that followed me throughout my life, that I wasn't ever really able to explore in depth like I wanted, because 9/11 happened, and that's when I started to look into it, to see, like, well, this can't be everything the media is saying. And surprise, surprise, it turned out it wasn't. And I did a little research then, but for various reasons, I either didn't. I don't think I knew that we had a local community. I didn't have anybody to talk to. I didn't know anybody who was Muslim. And then just over the years, it sort of came and went. I describe it as like a tide coming in and out of my life. Of, hey, I really want to look into this, and then it would kind of ebb away, and then, hey, I really need to look into this, and then it would ebb away. And so this final time, I was like, I'm really going to sit down, and I ordered a copy of the Quran off of a website that offered to mail one to you for free, and I was like, cool. So I got a copy of the Quran, and I read it cover to cover in like a week. And then I went and I spoke to a local imam, and I actually took my shahada that day.
Wow, it's amazing. So what was that like for you, taking your shahada?
It was very freeing. I felt this giant burden lifted off of my shoulders. I lost my little brother about 10 years ago in a single person auto accident, and I had been carrying around a lot of guilt and sorrow and grief over that because it was my car he had been driving when he got into the accident. And when I said my shahada and in speaking to the imam, I felt that guilt and grief just sort of lift, and I don't feel that anymore because I know that my little brother is okay, and
yes,
and that it wasn't my fault, and that no matter what I could or couldn't have done, if it was his time, it was his time, and Allah called him back to to be with him. So
yes, that makes sense. That makes sense. So what was it about this last time that you finally said, okay, now is the time to really take a concrete action on this?
There was just a feeling in my heart of this is the right thing for me to do. This is the path that I need to take for myself. And I could feel this, I guess you would call it the presence of Allah in my heart and surrounding me. And it was just, it was, for lack of a better term, it was a leap of faith.
Yes. Okay.
And just in total honesty, it was, I didn't look, I just leapt. And I haven't really looked back.
It's amazing. That's wonderful.
Yay.
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 You leapt and not looked.
Yeah, which usually it's usually you're supposed to look before you leap, but again, I'm a very emotional person, and I went with feeling, and so I leapt, and I said, this is it.
So, before you became Muslim, were you another religion, or like I was Catholic, for example?
Yeah, I grew up. Okay, so I grew up Jehovah's Witness and Mormon.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Yeah, that was interesting.
That's an interesting combination.
It really was. It really was. But I think I was about 6 years old. We stopped going to Kingdom Hall for, I don't know what my parents' reasons were, but they asked me, do you still want to go to Kingdom Hall? And I'm 6 years old, and I think sitting in a church and being talked to is boring. So, of course, I was like, no.
Yes. They let you make that decision.
They did.
My mom wouldn't do that for me at 6.
And so we were sort of non-denominational Christian for most of my growing up years, although we still... anytime the Mormon elders would come over, they would visit and we would talk. So it was sort of a kind of Mormon upbringing, but not really, because we didn't actually go to church. And then when I was about 16 or 17 years old, I was part of my friend's church, which was Baptist, but I never got baptized. I've never been baptized because I never felt like that, because to be baptized is a big commitment, and I never felt like I wanted to make that commitment. I never felt like I was in the proper frame of mind to make that commitment, so I was never baptized. And I was about 16 or 17. And I had all these questions about God and about my own self. And I would go to the pastor and I would ask, well, if there is a male God, why isn't there a female God? And if we're created in God's image, how can God be only male? And
good questions.
And instead of sitting down and talking to me and walking me through stuff, it was just like, you shouldn't be asking these questions. These aren't questions. You don't question the will of God. and you just need to pray and read your Bible more. And I didn't like that answer. So I went to find my own answers. And so from the time I was 17 years old until September of this year, I was pagan. I went and I was like, okay, I see God as female, and I'm going to go find my own religion. So I was Wiccan for years and years and years and years and years. And
sure.
So yeah, that answers that question.
Sure. No, I have friends that I know who are pagan. I have family members who are Jehovah's Witnesses, and in the Community of Christ, which is sort of an offshoot of the Mormon Church. So I have a wide variety. I even have a Hindu cousin-in-law. So, I mean, there's just so much variety in the world. And I think in the Quran, there's a passage where, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about, he could have made us all the same, but he made us diverse for a reason. So, yeah, I find there's beauty in that diversity.
So do I. Because, Allah loves diversity.
Yes, this is so true. So, yeah. So what sort of interactions have you had with Muslims?
I have mostly interacted with the sisters. The men tend to at our masjid tend to keep to themselves, which doesn't bother me at all. It's actually quite nice. And the interactions I've had have been just really nice. Everyone's been so welcoming and so open and just, willing to answer any question I have about anything. And everybody's just been so nice. I've actually made a couple of friends with several of the sisters. And if it wasn't for COVID, we would be doing Quran studies at the mosque. But because of COVID, we can't really do that. So we're trying to do the best we can with occasional get-togethers at the masjid or through the reverts group on WhatsApp.
Sure. So yeah, it's kind of with COVID, it's made things a little more difficult at times. Yeah. But at the same time, with me at least, there's a lot of Zoom resources out there and a lot of online stuff that I normally couldn't have gone to all those sort of things at one time in the past.
Yeah, so online resources have been immensely helpful.
So that's wonderful. So have you had like any spiritual experiences? Anything that nature?
As far as Islam goes, yes.
Just in general.
Well, one of the reasons when I started out as pagan was because I had experienced something that's called the dark night of the soul. And what that means is that's a time when you're questioning, the existence of God and your soul and just everything, and you don't know where to turn. And
that makes it like an existentialistic crisis.
Yeah, pretty much.
Existentialism is.
And
yes.
When I had put myself out there, and I was like, look, I don't know who's out there. I don't know what's out there, but if you are there, please just talk to me, give me a sign, something, anything. And at the time, I received, a vision of a woman, and it was like, I'm here for you. I am your mother, and this will, just follow your heart and you'll be fine. So that was one of the reasons why I became Wiccan, was because I was like, okay, well, this makes sense, seeing God as a woman, as maternal, as kind and loving, not angry and judgy,
Sure,
which was how God was presented to me as a Christian. That God, was like,
sure,
be angry with you at the drop of a hat, and if you mess up, you're automatically going to go to hell, and you have to always abase yourself, and you're never ever good enough. That wasn't really good for my self-esteem, by the way, as someone
no, I mean, I know what you're talking about. It's that the Old Testament vengeful, angry God, and I could never myself reconcile with that.
Right.
The New Testament, the love, because it just didn't make any sense.
Exactly. And so to have this feeling of God as mother, who, like, I have an awesome relationship with both my parents.
That's wonderful.
My mom has always been very sweet and maternal and comforting. So I was like, okay, well, this works. But after a while, I guess you could say I stopped hearing my deities talk to me. I couldn't hear them anymore in my heart. And so, again, I was having another dark night of the soul. And so I reached out, and I was meditating several times a day. And this is when I began to look into Islam again recently. I started to pray, and I started to pray Salah. And in addition to meditating and trying to just figure out where I felt at home. And I had recently applied for disability. And I heard this voice inside tell me, if you become a Muslim, you'll get your disability, and, things will improve for you. Life will get better. Because I was going through a really hard time mentally. I struggle with suicidal ideations. I have depression. It's just sometimes it's really, really rough. And
those are difficult things, because really your brain can
turn on you,
can trick you. It can turn on you. It's not really you, it's just the physical makeup of your brain.
My partner and I call those brain weasels.
Yes, that's very good. It's a brain weasel, it's not you.
It's a brain weasel, it's not you. So I began to pray more and really look into Islam. And lo and behold, I got my disability. And yay, alhamdulillah. And
that's not always easy.
No, it's not. I had to fight 4 years for it.
I believe it.
And things in my life have improved. I still have my struggles with my mental illness, and my depression and anxiety.
Yes.
But it's easier to handle. It's not as hard as it was. So I would say that's been another good spiritual experience that I've had with Islam, is just finding a peace within myself.
Yes.
And coming to terms with my little brother's death that I didn't have before.
Yes, which is so difficult when you lose someone in such a sudden fashion. My own sister died in a car accident, and so I understand how difficult that can be.
It's
very hard. It's very hard. And you always think about, what if I did this, or what if I did that?
Yeah, the what if game is
the what if game, but
we
really
should never play, and yet we always do.
Yes, exactly. Because I mean, like you mentioned, it is what it is. We're all here for a certain amount of time, and this isn't our home. It really isn't.
It's a temporary stop.
Yes. We're here to learn. That's my thought. To learn and to take care of each other and to help each other. Very much agree with that. I feel like this is a team thing rather than
exactly. It's a team effort.
It's a team effort. We can all lift each other up.
Very much agree with that statement.
So, how did your family handle your conversion? How did your partner handle it?
I'll start with my family, and then I'll go into my partner. My mom basically said, "You're an adult. You can make your own religious decisions, and if this is what you feel in your heart is right, then go for it." My daddy, when I told him, he was like, I kind of already figured that out. And I was like, I'm sorry, what?
Wow.
Like, Daddy, how did you figure that out? And he's like, just some, some of the posts you made on Facebook, and the fact that, I saw your mode of dress had changed. And just in talking to you, you seemed a lot more at peace with yourself than you have these last few years. So he was like, he's like, and I've had friends at work who were Muslim. So he's like, it's not like this is strange for me.
That's
so I was
wonderful.
like, okay, Daddy. My partner and I, she didn't take the news too well. And it was mostly because the communication between us at the time wasn't very good. I did not keep her in the loop of what was going on. From my communication with her, and then speaking with her, this is all true. From her perspective,
I wanted to be more a part of it,
She did. She really did. Because from her perspective, it went from, hey, I'm looking into Islam, I think it's something that I want to research more, to, hey, I'm going to go talk to the local imam, to, oh, guess what? I am now Muslim. And
that's quick.
It was very quick, and she felt very left out, and it made a lot of changes in our relationship that were not expected. And there have been, I'm not kidding, there have been weeks of crying and tearful conversations and figuring out how our relationship is going to change, how our relationship is going to have to evolve, because I made this life-altering decision without her input, and that is trust and input and mutual communication and mutual agreement on things are a very, very important part of our relationship, because we have a very special type of relationship, because we're not, when I say partner, most people think, oh, she's your girlfriend, and that's not true. That's not what our relationship is. Have you, for complete clarity and putting all my cards on the table,
yes,
because as you said, diversity, and people everywhere from around the world listen. I am, for lack of a better term, one whom her right hand possesses. I am her bondsmaid. I have made vows to serve her and be loyal to her, and she has made vows to protect me and take care of me and be my guardian. So
you take care of each other.
Yeah, we take care of each other. It's a very non-sexual, non-romantic relationship, but it's still very deep, and it's a very committed relationship on both sides. And so the fact that I would go and I would make this life-altering decision and not include her like I should have, was very hurtful to her, and that sort of hurt our trust with each other. And
that makes
we're
sense.
rebuilding that. We are still having conversations. We are still figuring out, okay, so, all right, I can't just feed you anything anymore. I have to watch out if it has pork or pork products in it, that you don't have that, because you now cannot have pork.
Yes, you have a different diet, that's for sure.
diet,
No pork.
And just another one has been mode of dress. My mode of dress has changed. I wear hijab now, and we've had to come to discussions on, okay, well, what does that mean? And so, in the Quran, it says that, women should lower their gaze and guard their modesty. It does not, however, give a bullet point on what exactly that means.
Exactly. This is true. There's a lot of discussion about what hijab what that actually means, because the word hijab is not actually used in that context.
So we have come to an agreement on clothing, and I know I'm kind of rambling here.
No, it's okay.
So, for example, if we're out together, I might wear pants and a light long sleeve shirt and a snood to cover my hair. But if I'm out by myself, if I'm running errands, or if I'm going to or if I'm going to the masjid, or if I'm going to be somewhere alone by myself, then I will cover more. I will wear, an abaya over my clothes, and I will wear, wear, a tradition, I will wear a headscarf, I'll wear hijab. And if I'm really feeling the need to be more modest that day or more covered that day, I may wear full niqab. And because I may not want, other people to see me. I may not want, strange people that I don't know to see what belongs to her, what is rightfully hers. And so we've come to that particular agreement, and that has sort of eased a lot of the tension in our relationship. And it's starting to very slowly rebuild the trust that honestly had been broken, that I broke. So, yeah.
Well, we're not perfect people.
Perfect people.
Nobody's perfect.
She is willing to work with me and to find out, okay, where does this next step in our relationship go? Which alhamdulillah, I am very, very, very grateful for her, because she is a very important person in my life, and I would not want her to not be in my life.
Has she been to the masjid with you? Has she met any of the sisters?
No, not yet. I don't think it's really something she's interested in. But that may change. Who knows?
Who knows? You never know.
Inshallah.
So, yes. So, yeah. So, have you made any changes in your life? And we talked about some of the inner changes, definitely some outer changes.
Yes.
But
it's been how shall I put this? I've become more aware of how I interact with people. I'm even though I'm a homebody, I'm a very extroverted kind of person. I'm very bouncy. I'm very bubbly. I enjoy community. I enjoy talking to people. But now I've had to sort of not necessarily rein it in, but just be more mindful of, okay, I don't touch members of the opposite sex anymore. Unless it's like a really, 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 really close friend that I've known for forever, I won't hug the opposite sex. I talk with my hands a lot, and so I'm a very physical person. And in general, in just talking to people, I may touch them, and I've started watching. Okay, if it's a man that I don't know, or if I'm not very well acquainted with, I keep more of a. If we weren't already socially distancing.
I'm about to say, we got the 6-foot thing going on. You don't want to, no one hugs anymore.
Right. If we weren't already doing the social distancing thing, I would probably be doing that just in general now.
Sure.
So it's more of a being more mindful of my physicality.
Yes.
Towards towards members of the opposite sex. And yeah, that's pretty much the only thing I can put my finger on at the moment. That's been a change that I can pinpoint.
Sure. So, was there anything that was just new and different for you, like some of the different things, some of the traditions in Islam? Any rituals that were kind of new to you?
Praying 5 times a day was something I had to get used to, and that's, for lack of a better term, one of the other negotiations my partner and I have had to come to terms with. I do the morning prayer and the evening prayer ritualistically, I guess you could say, with all of the movements, facing towards the Qibla, and I probably butchered that word.
That's okay, don't worry about it.
And but for the 3 other prayers, I just say them in my mind as the day goes along. And so that's been something that's been interesting. Another thing that recently came up was I was at the masjid this past Friday, and I have attended the sisters area is in sort of a balcony area. And I tend to like to sit towards the front of the balcony area because I like to see, the brother or the imam who is speaking that day.
Sure.
Because I like to see who's speaking. What I didn't know was that when it comes time for the Juma prayer, everybody is supposed to make a nice straight line, and I would just stay where I was.
Oh my! Wow, yeah. Well, now it's even harder because you got the 6 feet distance, at least at our masjid.
Yeah, we do too. And so I had to. One of the sisters pulled me aside, and she was like, "Hey, I know you're new." She's like, if you're here at the masjid next Friday and it comes time for prayer, she's like, I understand that we have to do social distancing. She goes, but you might want to back up a little bit and line up with the other sisters. That way it makes a nice straight line. And she said, by the way, you're sitting a little too close to the edge of the balcony because your vantage point, the men, if they just for whatever reason, if they happen to turn around, if they turn around to have to leave, or, whatever, they're like, they can see you, and that's not a good idea.
They can see you? Like,
yeah, they can see you because you're sitting too close to the edge of the balcony because it doesn't have a screen, it doesn't have a two-way glass, it's just the balcony and safety bars, I guess, so you don't go tumbling over the edge.
Well, yeah, you don't want to do that.
That wouldn't be good. So she's like, just kind of back up next Friday and don't sit as far toward the edge as you normally are, because everybody wants a nice straight line when it comes to prayer. And and she's like, do you really want to be looking at all those men's backsides while you're trying to pray? And it's like, well, no, not really.
Well, that wasn't the point. The point was you wanted to just get closer. Because that would be me. I admit it. I would be right up there with you. And, I mean, I really would be. And sometimes, I mean, to me, that's been this sort of division of genders, although I understand it, it's not an easy thing to adjust to.
No, it's not, because it's like, I understand why it happens, is, especially in the mosque, or the masjid. I'm still getting used to that.
Sure.
but it's like, women, in Islam, they were part of their community. They went and they interacted, with everyone, not just other women. So sometimes the division of the genders is a little off-putting. Isn't quite the right word, but it's new, and
yes, it's new.
It's very new. But in some ways, I like it because I don't have to, I don't have to worry about, anything else. I'm with other women, and I don't have to worry about, am I standing too close, or am I, is my bubbly, enthusiastic demeanor going to come off the wrong way? Because sometimes,
exactly.
Sometimes people take that bubbly enthusiasm and they're like, oh, you're flirting. And it's like, no, I'm really not. I'm just a very happy person.
Yeah, you're just happy. You're just bubbly, which is great.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it was interesting. When I first became Muslim, that was just really hard for me to figure out where those boundaries were and where they were in other parts of my life. And how do I apply this to other people because I'm a speech therapist, and there was plenty of times that I'm working with the opposite gender because that's my job.
Right,
that's what I do. It's my job to be there to help this person recover from their stroke. So yeah, it's getting better with time. That's what I would say.
Yay.
Yay. So, okay. Let's see. Have you been able to learn any reading from the Quran, anything like that? What are your plans when it comes to learning to read the Quran or learn more?
I try to memorize one sentence at a time.
That's good.
Because you can eat a whole watermelon if you do it in sections.
This is true. I definitely can eat a whole watermelon.
But I am attempting to learn Arabic, but I will be perfectly honest, I am so behind on my lessons. I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna have to start all the way over. But
there's a lot of good resources out there.
Yes,
really are.
Yeah, in our reverts group, they actually started a separate group where a sister teaches Arabic lessons online, and she's been sending little videos over WhatsApp. I think for the past 12 weeks, and I've had some life stuff come up, and I just got behind, and I was like, I am going to have to scroll all the way up through all these 12 weeks of lessons.
Oh no!
Yes.
Oh no! I actually found an app, if you are into apps.
Yes.
That I can give you later, which I'm telling you, this app changed my ability to read, basically. Like, I couldn't read until after I started using this app because it was just more concrete for me.
See, I love apps and I love learning. So yes, please.
So yeah, I'll share it with you because it really has helped me. So yeah.
Yay! Because I would.
And then I do have a teacher now. Oh,
that's good. And
so the Al Maghrib Institute has a class called Quran Revolution.
Ooh.
And I mean, there's a lot of classes out there, but hopefully it's okay if I plug this one.
Go ahead.
But yeah, it's very good. So
yeah. And eventually, I would like to be able to read the Quran in Arabic because I understand like when you translate stuff gets lost in translation.
It does.
So I'd like to, because like, for example, going back to the, to the topic of modest dress, most people call it hijab.
Sure.
That's not the word that was used. I don't know what the word was because I can't think of it.
Sure.
But hijab is not the word that was used in the context of to be modest and to dress modestly for both men and women.
Sure. Yeah, we're all asked to dress modestly, men and women, like you said.
Yeah.
And yeah, and I mean, really, for me, when I wear the hijab, I don't do it for other people. I do it for the sake of Allah.
Exactly.
And it's a personal choice that I make, and sometimes I meet sisters who don't make that choice. They dress modestly, and that's their choice, and I respect them I respect their decision. So, because everyone's going to tell them they need to put on a headscarf.
Right. And,
so,
I have read and cross-referenced and researched and looked up TED Talks,
There's a lot of good TED Talks.
on Islamic women's dress, and it turns out that there really was never a bullet point, given on this and this and this and this and this has to be covered. I ran across one hadith where the Prophet, peace be upon him, was speaking with a woman who would come to him, and she was scantily clad, and I don't remember the entire context, but the upshot of it was that the Prophet, peace be upon him, said when a woman reaches the age of maturity, the only things that she should show is this and this, and he pointed to his face and his hands.
Sure.
But could pointing to his face be just his face? Could it be his head? It doesn't really say. So it could be interpreted in so many different ways.
But I can tell you, I'm not any mom, and I'm not very well versed.
I'm definitely not a scholar either, and I'm so if I got that wrong, then
Oh yeah, a stick for love. May God forgive us if we got anything wrong, which could happen.
Forgive me, and someone correct me.
I mean, so how are you maintaining your new Islamic life? With everything.
I try to keep in mind my mannerisms. I try to keep in mind the way I dress, the way I act, my interactions with who I interact with outside of my home. I try to go to masjid every Friday. I stay in touch with several of the sisters. I read the Quran, I say I read it. It would be more accurate to say I listen to it, because I found a wonderful English audiobook version of it, because I always have to be doing something with my hands. So I will sit and I will crochet, or I will spin yarn, or I will weave, and I will listen to the Quran. So I'm always, at least, if not once a day, once a week.
Yes. And I have found that there are some apps that have the Arabic written out in basically in like a way that we could say it, like almost like it's transliterated, that's the word, into English. And I admit, when I first started reciting the Quran, I used that to recite.
Oh, how cool.
So, I mean, it gives you the feel of what the words are like in your mouth. And it was Ramadan, and I even went to a Quran reading group and started using that transliteration to recite, because everyone had to take turns. And I didn't tell anyone what I was doing. So they didn't know until someone ratted me out. They said, "Oh, listen to this sister. Listen to her recite. She's only been Muslim for 3 months, and she can already recite so well." I tried to tell them the truth about it. I can't recite. I'm just doing the transliteration, but they wouldn't believe me.
Well,
they thought I was being humble. But so then I actually had to go and really try to actually learn to read the Arabic, or I wanted to. But it was really a helpful tool for me to use that transliteration, because when I finally was able to read, I had some of that repetition already in my brain. And whenever I said it a little wrong, when I was using the transliteration, the teacher would correct me. And so then I realized how to say those sounds more properly. So that's my recommendation. Even if you can't read the Arabic, you can still recite the Quran.
Well, that's good.
So it's possible. So if someone who is interested in becoming Muslim, what would you tell them? What would your advice be to them?
Don't do like I did. do your research. Take your time. Even though what I did for me was the right path, it caused some complications that could have been avoided.
Sure.
So take your time. Do your research. Really delve into it. And if you have questions, try and find your local masjid, your local mosque. Set up an appointment with the imam if you can, and just talk to them and get your questions answered. Find a copy of the Quran. Read it for yourself. Whether it's a physical copy or if it's online or if it's an app, because there are apps out there that are the entire Quran.
It's true. I read one of them.
And just just do your own research and look in your heart and find out if it's the right path for you.
Sure. Okay. Well, I think we're pretty much ready to wrap this up. Is there anything else you'd like to say?
No, I think that was about it.
Okay. Well, I just want to say alhamdulillah and thank you so much for your time. And thank you again. And assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum salam, and thank you again. It was very, very nice to do this interview with you guys.
Yes. Thank you. Jazakallah khair.
Thank you.